Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club. Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club.
The theme of today's program is averting disaster. We've been so close so many times to things not going right. Not that any of you would notice, because again, it's all gone right. Just like Kent live on 1620 The Zone TV right now. I can see him. If you're watching on YouTube and our streaming channel, you can see him. And now we can hear him. Hi, Kent.
Hello.
Hey, I told you we could hear him.
I love
and
it.
We can see him. By the
I've
way,
been here for
when
what,
you're watching
all 15 seconds early?
Hey, you got it just in the nick of time, man.
all it matters is that you're here on time. That's it. That's all that matters. Well, this is one we have been looking forward to for quite some time. The Many Saints of Newark. This is streaming right now on HBO Max, and it's also in theaters. It is from David Chase, the man behind the series The Sopranos, and it's a backstory. It's a prequel.
Yeah.
It's really about a character that we never saw in the original series because, and again, we have
This is gonna be spoilers,
this is
folks.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for those of you listening and not watching in the stream. We've got the graphics up to say spoiler alert. But this is a spoiler alert.
That means a spoiler alert.
It is the main character is a character that never actually appears in the series because by the time the series starts in the late 90s, Dickie
dead.
He's dead. The father of Chrissy, Tony's cousin. They call him cousins, but it's kind of a weird relationship.
Yeah.
He's dead.
He's dead.
He doesn't exist, but he does in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's basically just the backstory. It's kind of set around the Newark riots of the late 60s. And then it kind of does a little fast forward
About 4 years.
to when Tony is a teenager and his father, Johnny Boy, is in the clink because, he's a mobster. He's a bad guy. And how Dickie is kind of the mentor of Tony. And you see how Tony kind of gets his first very early steps into a brand new world. And that's pretty much the plot of the movie. Kent, I'm curious. My first impression was, as a standalone movie, I don't know if it's great. As I would call it a two-part episode of The Sopranos, it works really well. What did you think?
I said that exact same thing. Literally that exact same thing. That I went to see it in the theaters. There is nothing particularly cinematic about this movie, right? You don't have to see it in the theater. It's not got, the visual bells and whistles or the sound or anything like that sets it apart. What it played to me like was actually two pretty compelling episodes of a TV series. And what I took away from it was, my bet is, if you looked at this, it was indeed created in association with HBO. It wasn't just produced by a movie like Warner Brothers, who's the company that's been putting their stuff on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. It wasn't just made by Warner's, the studio. It was also produced in conjunction with HBO. My guess is this will turn into being maybe an 8-10 part series that will take Tony from where this left off to maybe 5 or 10 years before the series starts, because you don't want to put somebody in that, you can only go up so close because of Gandolfini and all those other people are long gone now. So you can't go up like Gandolfini's gone, the guy who played Uncle Junior's gone. A lot of the actors are not with us anymore. So you can't really go right up to butt into the Sopranos, but you could go to like 1980 and show Tony when he first took over the family or whatever. And I think that's where you'll see maybe like I was thinking 8-10 part series to cover what it would be 5 years between the end of this movie and like 81, 82.
Ken, I wonder where you found the issue, or the movie rather, perhaps having the most issues. I went and saw it. I actually did see it in theaters, and I agree with you. You don't have to see this in theaters. I saw it with a friend of mine on Tuesday, and as we're leaving, we're discussing it. And the first thing that I said to him was, it felt like the movie was just a series of vignettes where, hey, let's do this for a couple of minutes, and then this for a couple of minutes, and then this for a couple of minutes. And another way of saying that it's a movie of vignettes is like it's trying to serve too many masters. Like I just thought that it was almost like, hey, look, we got to talk about this character and this one and this one and this one and all these different stories. And I wonder maybe if it would have been able to dive into fewer of them and maybe you get rid of a couple of ancillary stories, if that would have made it maybe a more cohesive movie. I wonder what you think of that idea.
I think that kind of actually happened about halfway through. I actually looked at my watch, and a lot of those ding, ding, ding sideways things kind of calmed down, so to speak, about halfway through. But you're right about that. But part of the reason I think for that is this movie really is kind of fan service in a way as well.
Definitely.
And if it didn't address Silvio and Polly and Uncle Junior and what was his mom's name? It wasn't Carmela. Carmela
Livia.
was the girlfriend.
Yeah,
Livia.
Livia. If it didn't hit all of those a little bit, then it's not, that's part of the fan service of it. And I think that he tried to, in a sense, do too much, but it didn't bother me as much once it sort of cohered into more of a direct story, if that makes sense.
It does. Now, again, we're warning you, there are
Spoilers.
The movie starts at the very beginning with kind of a walk through the cemetery. And as you're walking past certain gravestones, you hear the voices from the people that are lying beneath those gravestones about how they died or what their life was about. And you eventually stop on the gravestone that says Christopher Moltisanti. As if you remember the series, he died very early in the last season because they got in a car accident. And instead of saving his life, Tony just suffocated him because he admitted that he had been on drugs and Tony had finally had enough of Chris. What did you think of the use of Michael Imperioli, the actor, and the voice to play as a narrator of sorts for this film?
Actually, I thought that was probably one of the smarter things they could have done for two reasons. One, it made the direct tie to the Sopranos, but on the other hand, it kind of how do I want to put this? It kind of made it able to move the story maybe a little faster in a couple places. I mean, he doesn't talk very much, but when he talks, it sets the story up without the need for 800 miles of expositional dialogue, which, to its credit, this movie doesn't have too much of. My other thought on this line, not necessarily about Chris Mollis, is that they did, I think, do a pretty good job of giving a look at these guys that we saw when they were in their 50s and 60s as 20 and 30-year-olds, like Paulie Walnut being a racist, or Big Pussy, people laughing at his name, and those kind of things. And to me, the big revelation is the bad guy in the whole lot was Uncle Junior.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's really the other spoiler.
Yeah, and Ken, I did want to ask you about the acting, and you just brought up Livia. I thought what they did with her, and especially the look of her, where, I mean, there's a lot of similarities in certain angles to her and to Carmela, and given the relationship that Tony had with his mom throughout the series, and then in this movie, I found that pretty fascinating. And I thought she did a really good job, but I also thought that some of the other characters, Silvio, I think, is one that stands out to me. It was almost like they were like dressing up for Halloween, and I guess I kind of found some of that acting a little rough. And meanwhile, once again, just spinning around the characters, I thought young Gandolfini, there were moments where he kind of had like a lisp going, like Tony did, and I thought, wow, because he didn't even watch the show until he got cast for this movie, and so for him to take on some of those mannerisms of his dad, I thought that he did a good job. What did you think of the acting overall?
I thought he did well. I thought Alessandro Navoli was really quite good as Tomaselli.
Dickie.
And I thought most of the others were okay. They tried a little too hard with Silvio and the hair. I think that was what made it look a little goofy. And I did think Vera Farmiga was quite good as Livia.
Yeah, she was great.
What did you guys think of Ray Liotta being two characters?
That threw me off.
See, because in the trailers, I thought, and I told this to my friend after the movie, I thought that like he was going to be in prison the whole time. And so when he's not in prison early, I'm like, okay, he's eventually going to end up there. But then he gets killed, and I was really confused. Apparently, he shot all of his scenes, as the character who dies. And then he went away and lost a lot of weight. And so he tried to essentially enter a completely different character. I liked his second character. I thought that character maybe had a bit more nuance and was more interesting to me than the first one.
I agree 100% on the latter. The first one was almost caricature,
Yeah, too cartoonish.
Yep. The mistress, they managed to find these very attractive Italian women to play in this show.
Don't they though? They absolutely do. It is uncanny. And yes, in the words of Michael Severe, yes,
does she get naked?
She gets naked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can't have Sopranos. Can't have Sopranos with that because this is before Sil owns the Bada Bing.
There's no Bada Bing.
There's no dancers.
Yeah,
so
had to figure out some way.
Yeah, they had to do that. We're talking about The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos prequel.
But as far as the mob details, I will say they got a lot of that right. And by that, I mean, in the 70s, the mob was a numbers running outfit, and protection, which is strong arm, extortion, but they called it protection. But they ran numbers and protection, and, lots of stuff fell off of trucks, They hadn't moved into the drug business in the 60s. And you saw the first steps of that transition in this. And you also saw there was a mention of, in the 70s came RICO, right? Which is what's used to roll up the mob ever since. And all of those things fit. And the Newark race riots actually happened. And from what I can tell, at least some of that about how it started and all that was also pretty accurate to the time. Of course, who knows whether there was mob involvement, all the stuff that went on sort of next to it. I think that was, that's David Chase's invention. But, that's part of what made The Sopranos kind of ring true, is it did have enough to do with what was really had happened in the mafia in the 90s, and I think this to some measure has some of that as well. Back then, I did a lot of interviews about it with mob experts and a guy who claimed to be an ex mobster from New Jersey, and they actually pinpointed the exact family that the Sopranos are based on, and this may be taking some stories from that family as well.
Kent, do you think David Chase is a good movie director? Because for somebody who seemingly dislikes the medium of television, he just seems to fit that better, I think, than he does movies.
Well, it's important to note that he doesn't direct the television shows. The TV shows he writes and he oversees, but somebody else directs them. I don't think he's a great director. No, I think he's a very good screenwriter.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. We should probably get to the last spoiler because as you mentioned, Kent, earlier, the real bad guy at the end of all of this is Uncle Junior. Now, if you remember the series, of course, Uncle Junior in season 1, consorting with Livia, Tony's mom, arranges to get Tony whacked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that Dickie, who is to Tony what Tony was to Chris as a mentor, was very special to Tony Soprano. And the story, and it's actually addressed in later seasons of The Sopranos, was that there was somebody that Dickie Moltisanti was imprisoned with who didn't like him and arranged to have him whacked using a New York City cop.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony tells Chrissy this story, and Chrissy goes and gets revenge on the cop on his retirement night. Well, we find out that, in fact, the person who ordered the hit on Dickie Moltisanti was Uncle Junior, because Junior was upset
that he got laughed at. God.
What did you think of this twist? And do you think it was forced in just to give the movie a different, because we all just assumed we knew what his fate was.
Yeah.
But what did you think of working this twist in and painting Junior as the real enemy here?
Well, I really, wow. I mean, that was kind of the big surprise in the whole thing to me, was that twist there. And also, if you think about that and then think forward, it kind of puts a whole new spin on Junior in the other series. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep. Yes, absolutely.
The question that I have that this didn't answer is, and which is why I think we're going to see it again, right? We're going to see this. Why one of the main reasons I think we're going to see a series is this thing's had well over 1 million views on HBO Max. That's a huge hit.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see a series, because what was the question that wasn't answered? What happened to Tony's dad? And how did Tony end up in charge of the family?
That's true.
Yeah, and I thought that really fit the Junior character well. Like, he's always been so spiteful about just the littlest things like that. I just finished rewatching season 1 not too long ago, and there's the storyline. And, we're on AM radio, so I'm not going to get too graphic here. But he breaks up with a woman for, the dumbest reason, and he puts the pie, he pushes the pie into her face.
And that was one of the things that set Junior off about Tony, because Tony would make fun of Junior's prowess in the bedroom that he didn't want out there amongst the guys.
And so I thought that fit his character very, very well. And it's just man, that's another reminder of why that person is just so awful as a human, but a great character on TV. And I thought that Corey Stoll did an awesome job of playing young Junior.
Yes, I agree with that. And sadly, the guy who played old Junior, who was I interviewed him. He's a really interesting guy. He was a musician and, really had never done anything like Uncle Junior before he did that show. He passed several years ago now.
Did he? Are you Dominic Chianese?
Yeah,
I think he's still alive.
Is he? I thought he was gone.
So. He was on. So Michael Imperioli, who played Chris,
He was on Boardwalk.
And Steven Sharapa, who played Bobby Bacala, they do a podcast where they watched an episode and then they talk about it and they bring guests on, and they had Dominic Chianese.
Yeah, not that long ago, right?
Oh, really? I thought he had
still alive.
Oh, great. That's great, because he was great.
He's like 90 years old. So.
Yeah, he's getting up. Yeah, he just turned 90 this year, it looks like.
Yeah, the other Soprano cast member that I was I didn't actually interview, but I hung out with for a couple days off and on was Andrea Di Mattea, as in yeah,
played Chrissy's girlfriend,
Adriana.
Yes, Adriana. She was
at one
point married to Shooter Jennings.
Oh, really?
Yes. And when Shooter came here and played one time before they were married, and so I'm hanging out on the bus with Adriana, asking her all these Sopranos questions, and she said she didn't know she was going to get done in until the week they shot it.
Wow. Normally you think they talk these things out at the beginning of the season, but they kept it quiet from everybody, including the actress who was playing the part itself. Well, again, at the end of the day, I'm a Sopranos mark, and so I was probably gonna like this anyway. But I will acknowledge that as a standalone film, I don't know if it will do much for people. I really believe you need to see the series to appreciate the story, because I think the story works better as a two-part episode of The Sopranos, as you pointed out, Kent.
Yeah.
And for that, and if your theory is right, if you believe if that actually comes true, that this actually turns into kind of a spin-off miniseries where they continue to progress the Tony coming of age story forward, then it makes all the sense in the world why they did it.
And that's what I say. And the last thing I liked was when it gets to the final credits, they bring in that A3 song, Woke Up This Morning.
That was awesome.
Oh,
that was such a cool moment.
I went back and watched it again, because it was like as soon as Tony looks down at at Dickie in the coffin, and all of a sudden, because you've only heard like the 60-second cut up of the song as far as the intro to the show.
Yeah.
But the full song, and you start to hear the
yeah.
and I'm like, oh, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I hit the volume button and I turned it up and I started singing along. It was like, I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. I was marking out big time. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
The hilarious thing about that is I saw that band. It was called Alabama 3 for a while, and then they changed their name to A3. And I saw him play a show at South by Southwest. And of course, he got up and before he did the song. So I want to say one thing. This song is not about the mafia.
Awesome.
All right. It's The Many Saints of Newark, streaming now through the end of the month, I believe. Yeah, because it started on October 1st. They usually keep these up for 1 month.
Yeah.
So if you have HBO Max, you can watch it now as part of your subscription. It is in theaters if you want to catch it on the big screen. But I enjoyed it. I was going to enjoy it. So I hope you do too.
Do you have your next movie? It's your turn. Did you remember that it's your turn?
Once again,
John forgot that it was his turn.
Like a moron.
Here, while you look for a movie, Kent, what is your score prediction for the Nebraska-Michigan game tomorrow?
Michigan 21, Nebraska 17, and that as it could be 17-14 Michigan. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring affair.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a lot of us do as well. Evil Kent, what are you predicting for tomorrow?
I could see 52-38 or something like that, probably Nebraska.
How about the fact last week, Kent, that Nebraska's starting to put up the points, and there was that Northwestern drive where they could have made it 28-14. It's like, oh my gosh, is Evil Kent going to perhaps be in play for the first time in a while?
I was stunned. I was stunned Nebraska was able to score that many points. But I thought, oh boy, here we go. We're going to get something like that, 49-42 or some craziness like that. And then there was a turnover. Imagine that.
And then there was a turnover.
And then there was a turnover. Yeah, I wasn't. I was thinking the same thing you guys were. I thought, oh gosh, if Evil Kent,
it's gonna have a chance.
we actually had people tweeting at us,
yeah,
saying
it's in play,
saying Evil Kent is in play, and then that changed. That changed in an awful big hurry. Oh gosh, why don't I think of?
I don't
things,
know,
Josh?
man.
You know why? Because this was supposed to be my pick when it came up, and it was actually your turn. So, and
why don't you pick one off the air and we'll tweet it out and we'll text it to Kent?
That's a good idea.
Right,
I will look it up during the break because I don't know if you've been watching along on the stream.
Our internet,
the internet's been a little wonky, so you've probably seen a lot more of Kent and Chance than you've seen of
That's
Josh.
True. That's true.
But we made it through and we got her done. So Kent, yeah, we'll tweet that out and I'll send you an email and we'll definitely look something up and go from there. But always appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see me in the press box tomorrow.
Beautiful. I will be there early because I'm doing this one all by myself. So I actually have to work.
Oh, well, as long as we can get up there with Mike Babcock and tell old stories, that's all I can do.
Yeah. We'll head back to 1983 if you'd like.
Oh yeah, you're right in my wheelhouse.
There you go.
With that. All right, Kent, take care. Have a great weekend.
Later, Kent.
That's Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star, and that's the movie club still to come. One Beer Friday is about to begin. Folks are starting to come in now to the Doghouse Saloon. We have tickets to an event of great significance that is happening in 26 hours in a stadium of great significance.
Yeah.
It's a sold-out event.
Yeah.
We are giving them away here in the bar within 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So you have to be present to win. Obviously, you have to be here to register and then present to win. Plus, we have the $25 gift card to the Doghouse Saloon. So come on out, say hi, enjoy some of Dog's great cooking, ice cold beer, and a lot more. Back in a minute. You're listening to Unsportsmanlike Conduct on 1620 The Zone.